I'm no longer a slave to fear, 'cause I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
Welcome to Journey to Service. William Laddick here. Welcome to our guests once again, returning Lee Mudway or Mudders, as I like to call him sometimes, and Randall Earl Kaiser, just freshly putting on his hat with a beam of sunshine coming through in that sunny city they call Calgary. How you guys doing?
Awesome, brother. Wonderful.
Fantastic, Mr. Mudders.
Top of the world, Ma. Top of the world. Another wonderful day.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna just jump right in. I was kind of feeling like I wanted to pursue the topic of sovereignty a little bit more. We touched on it a little bit last week, and what kind of rang for me. There's two things that kind of jumped in there for me. One was, that what we talked about last week was sovereignty, the way it has appeared up until now in this old paradigm, has been something you had to effort to get, because there was paperwork involved and you had to claim your sovereignty in more than just a declaration. It had to be done, or supposedly had to be done, with documents and a whole bunch of other things. But as was touched on last week, that claiming sovereignty in a new paradigm is real easy. I am sovereign, and that's about it. Do either of you gentlemen wish to expand on anything in that point, looking forward more so than maybe about the past?
How about Lee, you take it off this time first? I don't like to always be in the lead.
It's okay. Okay. So let's put a caveat in that we're talking about old paradigm versus new paradigm. So what is the new paradigm? What is the change that we may see? What's about to happen? So we've got the existing systems, which we can talk about and we can outline all the problems with, but not necessarily individualize them. Let's leave that alone. As humanity wakes up to what is, as humanity wakes up to what's been going on and the obfuscation of the truth and the realization that pretty much all of their rights have been stripped, fake authorities have been imposed upon them, rules and laws and legalities, etc., have been imposed, and they've been oppressed and suppressed to the point where they just had no freedom. And what most of humanity will look for, in my opinion, right now is freedom. They want freedom. They want love. And I say love openly. Most of us, humanity, are compassionate, loving beings. They want love and they want freedom. So as we go forward, if we look at the truth coming out about what is, that is then undeniable to the unobservant, let's use that word as it stands, they're going to be looking and choosing a different outcome. And that outcome is going to be on a sovereign basis. What does sovereign mean? The etymology of sovereign is above authority, i.e. there is no authority, equality. So when you're looking at freedom, love, peace, that comes into it, and a sovereign status of above authority, then you get into this stage of what will humanity choose? Not what we perceive humanity would choose, but just looking at individuals, looking at yourselves, looking inside yourself. What would you choose? So sovereignty for me is much more about a moral, ethical way of living with freedom and accountability. From an individual aspect, my responsibility is my own to act in a moral and ethical way that is alongside my own feelings of love and empathy and compassion towards another. Treat another as you wish to be treated. So the new paradigm will create a new choice and a new decision by the collective for a new future. And that future, for me, is a sovereign future of unalienable rights. I'll let you carry on now, Randy. What do you think?
Wow, that was awesome. I love the choice of words, brother. Like the above authority. That's something I never really looked into on the etymology side. And that's just so bang on, brother. That is beautiful. And then, accountability. So you're accountable for yourself. You're responsible for yourself. Like those kind of words are so important to us right now. I think I'll take a different twist, as we always do. We add to each other's stories, and that's the beautiful part about this Authentic Ones group that we've maintained over the last year, and is that we're accepting of the God within each of the individuals that comes on here in their authentic way. We're all godly, like there is one God, but it's in you. And it's also in you, everyone else, like this idea of an anthropomorphic God is so tempting to get drawn back into, the universe or God in an anthropomorphic way, or, the collective. Those kind of words come in, and it's difficult for us to stay out of that realm of some outer thing. Of course it's outer, but it's also inner, and to explain that is really almost impossible with words, because Jesus Christ did the best he could. He said, ye are gods, like I am the Son of Man, so are you, and Son of God, whatever he said. I get mixed up, but I want to break it into three categories, like I do with a lot of things in my mind, right? And it's my reality, it's my perception. Everyone has their choice and always will, like and even in these so-called suppressed times, we still choose, like I'm not saying that everyone in a communist land has freedom of choice on everything, but most things they do. They can spiritually go into a sovereign state. They can physically go into a sovereign state. We don't need to eat. We can just drink water or be a breatharian or whatever, or choose a banana a day or something like that if we want. So where does that leave us? It's still choice, right? Even at that basic survival position, it's our choice whether to eat or drink, So as an individual at the level of the body, okay, so I'm going to speak in terms of body, mind, and soul, or spirit, or God, whatever word you want to call the spiritual jurisdiction. But at the body level, we all have choice, to choose what we put into these temples, these beautiful divine gifts that we've been given by our father and our mother, like it was a gift, a spark of divine that made us become these physical beings, right? So we've got this gift. So we get to decide what to put in it. And in every nation in the world, it doesn't matter if you're talking about communism or capitalism or whatever, there is still food available and water available. Is it good food and water? Not in very many cases, but in our nations, we can choose, we can choose what to put in our bodies. So is there, infiltration of things at that next level up, that government level, into our food system and our water system? Of course there is. So, we have to be aware of that and then still make as good a choices as possible. Okay. So it's about that sovereignty at the basic body level. That's where I wanted to start. Then we go into the mind, right? And our mind, and bowing to no authority, like Lee said. That's a beautiful way of putting it. So government is govern mind, right? It's govern the mind, mente. And that word alone puts us in the idea that we should be looking outside ourselves for sovereignty and saying, fuck you, government, I'm a sovereign. And that's where the paper comes in that William was talking about earlier, and documentation and everything else. We start to think in terms of that. And where the hell did that come from? Well, it came from people who realized their own sovereignty, put themselves above any authority into royal positions or, leadership positions in tribes, let's just put it that way, like chiefs or whatever, like a lot of the people that are living on the land in Canada that are so-called native origin will consider themselves sovereign, the leaders, right? So, then you put yourself above that authority. And then people start to think, wait a minute, they're above me. Well, no, they're not. You can go there too. You can be on equal ground with these people. And I've never bowed to anybody. Like when it came to business or banking, or now where I deal with in these so-called royal families, it's still my opportunity and my sovereign right to join them and to co-create with them, or to, not, like it's, so I keep choosing to engage in these above authority levels, okay? Above government levels. And the last one, I'll keep it short because everybody knows this. It's just that divine natural activation, that God within you that you connect with on a sovereign level. And when you look outside, knowing that that God is within Lee and within William and within every other living organism on earth, then that's the outer, okay? So how do we approach the outer? Either with authority or with love. If you approach the other with love, then it's pretty simple, isn't it? Like we've just got this all the simplicity that I like to, do in my world, okay? And share with others. I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm not saying it's the wrong way. Not, I'm just sharing, and that's it. So back to you guys.
Awesome, Randall. Interesting. I noticed some commonalities between the two responses and also some differences, obviously, but I kind of felt a little playful. So I had 4 key phrases that came up. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask Lee to see if any one of these 4 phrases stand out for him, and if so, which one? And if not, is there another one that popped out by listening to these 4? And then we'll pop the question or the details more toward Randall, and then we'll flip it and do it the other way around, see how that goes. So Lee, here are the 4 things that popped up for me just listening to both of your answers. There's think of it like the TV show Jeopardy. You have 4 categories. Which category will you pick? So Mr. Mutters, category number 1, what to do? ? Category number 2, Jesus, Savior. Number 3, outlook. And number 4, working in simplicity. Which would you like to pick? Or would you like to pick a different one?
Well, if I say working in simplicity, what would be your answer then? Or what? I'll pick that category, but I've never watched Jeopardy, so I don't know. I'll just pick that category. Now what?
No problem. Now we're going to ask Randall what simplicity means to him when he hears the term working in simplicity.
Oh, I see. So he picked the category. Now I have to answer the question. What is working in simplicity?
Yeah. What does that strike for you in your heart, in your mind, in your soul when you hear that phrase?
Oh God, it's the ultimate, like I always think of the word when I think of the phrase from, what was the guy's name? Geez, now I'm not going to get it. But anyway, the phrase is, I couldn't give a fig for the simplicity on the near side of complexity, but I'd give my life for the simplicity on the far side of complexity. So complexity being the human construct, right? And that's all we're doing as human beings. That's different than other animals. We're constructing a world with words. And it's that construct that has to be simplified always. And whenever I get involved in any kind of worldly human construct, I go into meditative, I go into myself, I go into the Jesus Christ that's within. So that was that other category. And I seek the simplicity. I'm not seeking any more complexity. Fuck the complexity. I hear what you're saying. I hear what the complexity is in your mind. Inflation, deflation, economics, all this fucking bullshit. okay, I want the simplicity. Okay. And when I've broken down to, I'm going to give you the simplicity just quickly in the banking industry and in the monetary system, is that it's all a fucking story anyway, every bit of it, because we're the ones creating the value of anything, whether that is a credit system or a gold coin. Okay. We're still manifesting and a system as human beings. So that's the simplicity of that. That's why I talk about debt being an illusion. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just, that's another story, right? So sorry, that went along, but simplicity to me is just the ultimate. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Randall. And I want to give Levy a chance to actually talk on that subject too, as far as simplicity, but I'm going to add a little bit more and then you can add anything else you want to it, obviously, Lee. But one of the things that struck me about the GPMS system that you are, supporting and promoting throughout the world is its simplicity. And so I remember from our conversation last week that if somehow in my own mind, that when you talk about GPMS, for example, it's trying to get a grasp of it. In my experience, I found that I was looking for more complexity than the simplicity that was offered. And I kept thinking it's got to be more than what's currently being offered, but it's really not. And there's still a lot to be determined too, because it's a group people decision as to what that system is going to ultimately look like. So any thoughts about what Randall said or I just added here now?
No, I see. It's perfect. I see simplicity as Christ did almost. It's the complex is required for the bafflement, for something to be blamed. Now it's so complex. I didn't understand it. Therefore, I couldn't perceive it. It's okay. They knew what it was and I let them look after it for me. Like the body, like Randy was saying, if you listen to the science, the body is so difficult to understand. You need an expert to tell you what to do with it when it's not. When you take it down to simplicity, you just put water in it, you autophage you, like Randy says about fasting, etc., then it repairs itself and it's nice and simple. But in hiding behind simplicity then is responsibility and accountability. When it's complex, you can blame it on something else. I didn't understand it, therefore I don't need to be accountable for it. So with regards to the way we've been brought up and the structures we've been set up in, it's all been majorly complex so that we didn't have to be involved in it, removing our sovereign status, if you like, and us willingly giving it to somebody else because it's too much to understand. And this is all done on purpose, this division, etc., etc. So of course the indoctrination and the mindsets and the subconscious programs look for complexity because it's where we're comfortable. And then the simplicity comes in and it's all too easy. Well, it can't be that easy. If it was, I'd have understood it in the first place. Yeah. And that's where the house of cards comes crumbling down, because then you realize that the complexity was the fake and the simplicity was the simple, but you ignore the simple for the complex because it keeps you safe. So in a lot of these aspects, again, it's this, I think it was in comment to one of the videos we did, the simplicity is too complex for me to understand. Yeah. So stop looking for the complex and bake it down to the simple. What is the simple fundamentals? Freedom, peace, love, harmony. What's stopping that? The complexity. Who's imposed it? The legal structures, the government structures, the structures above us, the structures in authority, the queens, all of these things that claim they're sovereign. But in all aspects, the simple aspect of sovereign is above authority. And it's sovereign by status means that you are accepting equality of everybody else because you know that they are the God within them. So in effect, anybody that says they're in authority above another by claiming a sovereign status is lying, because it's not sovereign to say that you're above somebody else in that aspect. Again, make it simple. What does sovereignty mean? Equal. Above authority, therefore equal, not in authority. Oh, you don't realize you're sovereign. I'm in authority above you. No. Let's break it all down to really, really simple. So it's an Einsteinian quote, I think, and I'm not a big fan of Einstein, but if you can't explain something to somebody in its simplest terms, you don't know enough about it. So like Randy was saying, you'll sit and meditate until the simple solution comes through. The same with me. I look at the complex, like you said, I think the actual phrase was, "I'll give my left bollock for the simple at the end of complexity." But I look at the complex and break it down to simple, because if it's complex, then we don't understand it. Break it down to simple and it becomes understandable, and therefore accountability and responsibility are a lot easier. But then they have to be taken inward, not externalized. Complex means it can be external. Simple means it's inside. So again, Christ did light, purity, and all these things are on the inside. Simple is on the inside. Complexity is external in that aspect.
I want to kind of give an example of that a little bit, just from my own experience, actually, Lee. I've come across, opportunities to learn more about sovereignty within the old system and what would be required. And I mentioned it at the top of the show. And to be honest with you, it looked so complex, so involved, so many steps that we would have to do as an individual claiming your sovereignty, that it didn't seem worth it. It didn't seem worth the effort, the time to do any of it. It was like, I got to do that, and then I got to let this go, and then, okay, and then the government's not part of my life, which is a good thing, but I have to go through all this other paperwork before I do that. And so when you said that last week, when you said that, there are people making a living basically online, helping people become sovereign in the old paradigm, but now in the new paradigm, you just have to stand there and claim it, and then live it, and then take it on. So, I found that so refreshing and so freeing when you said that. And again, it was like I was being decomplexed, because I was thinking, okay, how are we going to bring this in? And I started thinking about all the hows and the steps and what's it going to look like and all that kind of thing. And all it is really just standing there and claiming it. It's like hand on the heart, left hand up. I am a sovereign being, and I take full responsibility for my thoughts and my actions and my deeds, and so on, whatever else, that maybe I missed in that statement. But that's kind of, I get this sense of relief when you said that, and I get the sense of relief around GPMS as well, because again, it's the idea of simplifying the system and looking at it from, what is it that my heart wants, and what actions do I need to take to make that happen? Is there anything you want to add to any of what I just said there, Lee?
It's perfect, because what you've gone past now is the complexity of what is, or what the perceived what was, into what will be. And in micro to macro, you're feeling that. Other people will be feeling the same thing. There's a lot of people out there that want to change everything, but they don't know how to, because the system's too complex. But then the simple solution comes. And as the people join together for this and stand up and say, you know what, no more. Mass non-compliance, I call it, which is inevitable. A choice will be made by those to simplify everything. And the ones that still want to hold on to the complexity, just no, we don't need any of that. It was your game to cause this. And in the first place, we've tried that. Didn't work. Let's try this. So I love the fact that you're saying it gave you some upliftment, if you like, to look forward a little bit in this extrapolation of linear time and say, well, the inevitable outcome of what is happening right now is a mass choice being made in the not too distant to remove all of these structures, really, not destroy them, not to work with them, if you like, to use them, but in a much more simplified way by taking away all of the problems. What's the problems? Well, the legal structure is the massive one at the moment, where all these steps need to be made to state what you already are. Inside your home, you are sovereign. There is no authority in there. Yet when you go out into the street, all of a sudden there's authority everywhere. It makes no sense. You can't do this, you can't do that. Do we need all these rules? What are these rules for? Who are they for? What to do? Do they help anybody? Do I need somebody to tell me when I've done something wrong? Do I need somebody to penalize me? Do I need somebody to judge me? Do I need these things? Or can I rectify it myself, given the opportunity to? All of these different things that have been put there for us to control society, because we're all crazy, mad lunatics, that without this rule structure and all this complexity, we'd all go and rip each other's throats out. But really, That's not what humanity is. They're a loving, compassionate, humane being. And that's what we're going back to, in my mind, as we come through this. People will start to then stand up and go, you know what? No, in my house, in my road, in my wherever I go, we are autonomous, sovereign individuals. We respect each other to a certain degree. You know, I'm not going to go into the semantics of that, but overarching, that is the case. And that's what we're going to be going back to, simply, in my mind.
Now, I'm wondering, there's a part of me that so badly wants to be able to answer the question in my mind that says how. And I know each week I ask you guys questions or cheat and try to say, okay, how's it going to look like? How's that going to come down? How's that going to happen? And I still feel that urge to do that. And I don't know how to get out of that circle, because perhaps what I'll just do and say, okay, this is a challenge that I'm currently facing, that I want to know what the future is going to look like, you know, in the formation of this simplicity and this decomplexization. How's that for a couple of words?
Beautiful.
But, you know, like, I'm just going, I want to be able to get a feeling of how to do that. And I have no idea. So number one, how do you gentlemen deal with thoughts like that when they come up? I'm sure you get something like that. Although, you know, you keep yourself, especially Randall, I think you keep yourself quite busy in the now in activities and just educating and sharing with people. But I'm still curious as to how you deal with wanting to figure something out of what it will look like once you have that intention. So Randall, can I toss that question at you first, and then I'll ask Lee the same question?
Sure. Like Lee brought some beautiful words into it. Again, I love the way that Lee, you know, expands on the words themselves. And that's what it's all about. That's what gives mankind a structure, right? And kind is such a beautiful word to add to man. I think we've been deceived into thinking that we've always been just warring and, you know, go out the door looking for somebody to jab with a bloody sword and stuff like that. Like, you know, I think that in the, you know, for thousands of years maybe, or who knows how long, I don't know, want to go into time right now. But I think before this current legal jurisdiction, parasitical government came into being, that we were living in a more orderly structure. I honestly believe that. You know, I think that these kingdoms that were around without one king ruling the whole fucking world or whatever, like there was kingdoms in Indonesia before, in the archipelago, before it became Indonesia under a legal jurisdiction name, for instance. And, you know, Philippines the same. And I've been there, so I know and have met with royal families there, right? And they're godly people. You know, they're thinking in terms of helping society. And now I'm diving right into that in the European families and seeing a lot of that again. That's why I don't like the idea of just destroying what we have. You know, let's work with it. However, I'm not an anarchist, and anybody that wants to use that word on us is completely out to lunch, because we're not. We do believe in some kind of structure for mankind, and a kind structure for mankind. That's what we're here for, is to try to, or not try, but to bring humanity into that ascended consciousness, which is happening no matter what anyway, on a spiritual and a physical level as we evolve. But it's so obvious that human beings are still seeking, you know, they're seeking leadership. And when you walk around outside anywhere in the world right now, you're going to see it, because you're going to see people walking around with that thing on their face. So they're following, they're listening to someone else other than themselves, digging into their mind and saying, wait a minute, is it healthy for me to put this on my face? They're not asking themselves that. They're just doing it because they're being told to do it. Or same thing with this. Is this healthy for me, or is it something I'm just being told to do? So this has been a big lesson for me as a non-anarchist, but also as a potential leader of people to say they want leadership, and they want leadership with love and with a smile on your face and with consciousness and caring and compassion, and not, orders and mandates and commands, and fear, because that's all those things do, is drive fear into the minds of the masses. And it's so ingrained that I still get people fighting me. Well, I'm free to think about the fear if I want to be. Well, yes, you are. Go ahead. If you want to think about the fear, it's completely your choice. I'm not telling you it's bad. You go ahead and do whatever you feel like doing. I'm going to stick with love, and I'm going to continue to bring that love and that human kindness at the end to everyone. That forgiveness for these government officials who know that their structure is completely fucked and it's completely imploding because it was so complex. Complexity driven into our brains through words studied and memorized by doctors and lawyers and judges and all these people who feel they're in that authority position. Bankers, you name it. Like they feel as if they have authority. Well, go above them. Like Lee says, that's what sovereignty is. Go above them and just say, look, I can hear what you're doing and I see what you're doing. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me. I'm still a leader, and here I am to lead you out of that government jurisdiction if you want, because that thing is fucked. Common law is a step back, and that's where, just before I leave this go, because I was thinking about it, and that's where the idea of a common law pure trust, or the idea of these sovereign thinking, I'll just call it sovereign thinking, royal families exists, okay? Because it is simpler. And as much as the words, there's 20 pages or whatever of common law language, that's half or a quarter or maybe a tenth of what you'd put into a legal jurisdiction trust or some bullshit like that, with all the babble that legal jurisdiction puts into shit. And the words in it are very kind and compassionate words. They're loving words. So that's why I was attracted to that. And with the First Republic Registrar Foundation, it may seem complex for people, but after coming out of the legal jurisdiction, it's fuck all compared to that bullshit. That's just complete, utter babble. And to put people into an authority position because of that and to bow to them, bullshit, But to go up into this, if I call them sovereign families, sovereign thinking families, sorry, and listen to them and listen to the words they speak. I've had conversation all morning back and forth with the man who would be king and the woman who would be queen, after this old gal, who supported and helped build the legal jurisdiction is gone. She's not royal. And if she had some kind of royal blood in her, then her thinking went out of whack, or she was governed by her grisly scumbag fucking Prince Philip husband or something, like in the legal jurisdiction banking families. That legal jurisdiction being the Vatican, the City of London, the inner city of London, which includes the Crown Corporation. Okay, it's a corporation, and Washington, D.C. with its military and media might, So that legal jurisdiction is what we have to surpass and move past. And it's very difficult now because we're all caught up in the Trump story and all of that still being legal jurisdiction until he or somebody in that white hat organization comes out and says, look it, and he said it, we the people, he'll talk like that, but he doesn't come right out and say, we're moving to a republic. This is republic. It's going back to you, the people. It's not going to be government corporation bullshit anymore. So that was a little ranty, but that's me.
He went ranting and then he was happy at the end. So this was good. One of the things that you said, Randall, that hit me and definitely made an impression and gave me a vision was the leadership conversation, the things that you were talking about, being a leader, helping other people who still don't see the leadership within themselves for themselves. And so immediately what I thought of was that, again, that simple expression, teach another man to fish, rather than just catching the fish for him, teach another man how to fish, teach people how to be leaders for themselves and responsible for themselves. Because frankly, we actually haven't been used to that. We haven't been trained into doing that. And so it's really easy to point the finger elsewhere and blame and whatever else, and say, well, they taught me to do this and it's their fault, or the authority this, or the politician that, or whatever. And I always remember, of course, whenever you're pointing a finger at someone, you always have three fingers pointing back at you. So just keep that in mind as well.
Pew, 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 pew.
But pointing the finger at Lee here a little bit for the same question with regards to the future. And I'm always thinking about the future. And are there ever times you get impatient and say, oh, I want that future, I want that simplicity, I want that intention for humanity now? And what do you do with that? How do you deal with that?
It's been one of those frustrations. We've all gone through it. I mean, if we look back 6-8 months ago with mine and Randy's conversations, the amount of frustration, I'd say, that was coming out, we were a little bit rawer then. But the point being is, you relax into the universe has got this. We've got this at a higher level. So it's just a case of we're traversing the steps now without knowing where we're going to. Well, we know where we're going to, but we don't know how we're going to get there. So it's trying to map that journey. But once you start to relax into it and say, you know what, it doesn't matter how we get there. It doesn't really matter what it is. We know it's going to be different to what it is now. We know that the structures that are in place now are gone at a certain stage in the future. And it's not that far ahead. Looking at the way it's all imploding at this point in time. Yes, there's some caveat. There's some extrapolation in my mind, but it's when you're seeing it from such a big aspect of what's going on, and you're seeing so much of it imploding, it is inevitable that it all goes pretty much at once. And I look at the same old analogy of 100 people on an island, which is what humanity is going to be like in a minute, on a desert island, they all land there. Well, what are they going to do? Yes, there'll be leaders. Yes, there'll be direction, but they're not going to be in a position of authority over the others, because everybody needs each other. And the ones that are good at this will inevitably rise to be good at that and do that automatically. So the positions that are being held now by the ones that have more nefarious intent or malevolent intent will be relinquished. And the ones that can step into those positions are already there. They may not know they're there. They may not feel that way at this point in time, but inevitably and compassionately and with all the best benefits for humanity in mind, they will step into those positions because it's what they do. And this is the interesting part of relaxing into it and seeing it happen, is that the ones that are needed are already there in position, but they don't tend to know they are. And they can be directed, led by ones of higher consciousness, if you want to call it that. The leaders can be, again, overseeing a lot of this as it's happening. As in my mind, there's going to be a military input too, as the military is sort of come in and remove these malevolent structures, these malevolent individuals from the systems, for the stepping up of humanity into those positions. Just like on a desert island, just like, right, how do we do this now? Yes, we may see it as stepping back a little bit, but in fact, it's not, because with all the suppressed technology and with all the expertise and with all the brilliance and all the answers that are in everybody, in every different culture and societal need, they've already got the answers for it. They just haven't got anywhere to implement the answers at the moment because the structures are stopping them. Like Randy's money, he can't get it through. It's not being transferred through because the structures are stopping it. It's not that there's, apart from the structures and the individuals within those structures, everything would flow. So again, it's simplifying it right back down. If you're in a playground with a load of children, how easy is it? How easy is it then for humanity to become those children again and be in that playground and look after each other and play and actually create a human experience that's fun and worth living and is playful and joyful and full of love? So again, it's simplifying it right back down to, we don't need to know. We just need to know it's going to happen, and we can see it happening. So what I do is I relax into it and go, yo, go universe. I don't need to know this anymore. I don't need to know the next step or the next phase or the next plan or the next bit or any of these things, because It's just going to happen. And this is the game. This is the show. This is the walkthrough. This is the linear timeline we're going through. And the egoic or the control need because of the past. Now, I need to know what's going to happen in the future so I can plan it. Well, do you? Do you really? Or are you happy each day just to follow each day and flow through each day and just come back into the now and say, you know what, today's fine. Tomorrow, different day. I'm not worried about it. Today's good. And if we can all sort of start to do that, then we can start to take that sovereign status and really run with it, because then you're only in today. You're not worried about tomorrow. Of course, once you start to unlimit money, give abundance, give freedom, really everybody comes back down to a more simple way of being, but a more loving, compassionate way of being that thrives the human experience hugely in that aspect.
I thank you, Lee. I was thinking about something that's been bothering me for a while too, in that, and perhaps some words of wisdom that maybe you can share for those viewers out there who may be in the same situation as myself, for example. And what I'm talking about is there's definitely a resistance coming up to the way things used to be done. And because there's so much more things being thrown upon us through governments, governments, the controlling systems, et cetera, et cetera. And we're saying, a lot of people are saying no more, and I want to fight. But there's sort of, for some people, it's just natural for them. It's almost an aggression, but not an aggression in a physical way, but an aggression of, I'm not putting up with this anymore, and I'm resisting, and I'm going to be taking action on my resistance. So we're going to take you to court, or we're going to sue you, or we're going to do certain actions that will not allow you to fulfill your mandates and things of that nature. I myself am a very passive person. I am, a gentle person. I am not combative by nature, but at the same time, I step back and I often wonder, am I doing enough? Like, I don't feel like I'm doing something. I don't feel like I'm doing anything, and I feel a certain sense of guilt. And are there, there are people out there that maybe just don't feel like they need to fight or they need to stand, but at the same time, they shouldn't be looking for a savior either. And I was wondering about that too, because then again, that's putting the authority outside of yourself. So how does someone who maybe does have a combative nature, how do they navigate these times? Do you have any suggestions or thoughts of what they could do, or maybe even what you do yourself? Because I think you're probably a fairly gentle soul yourself. So how do you deal with it for yourself? Even
it depends on the other way, or was the other way around. I mean, obviously, aggression is one of those base instincts that comes out once you start to get pushed into a corner. And this is where everybody is at the moment. They're pushed into a corner. The mandates and all the rest of it are pressing them into a corner, and you're going to fight, come back out of it and fight it. But you can't fight it with their system, because their system is owned by them and controlled by them. So trying to go through the courts, which is owned by them, is mute. But nevertheless, people will need to do it to show others it's pointless. So a lot of people have got these journeys whereby they're doing certain things in the process of releasing humanity as a whole. So I wouldn't say to anybody, don't do anything. If you feel to do it, do it. But understand where it's coming from that you're doing it. Are you trying to fight the same system that's oppressing you via the same system's tools? Are you giving it authority by saying, please give me more, please stop? Or like you just said, stand back, non-comply, right? If everybody stopped complying completely, everybody just said no, then it has no authority. Nobody can make you do anything if everybody says no. And that's pretty much where we're going to. Everybody's going to say no. You've got the unobservant ones, the ones that still wear all this, but as more and more say no, and as the evidence shows that the unobservant ones are falling foul of their unobservant nature, let's call it that. See, I'm not using words to get you fancy. Then they're going to start to move towards this non-compliance, towards this new system, towards this change. So yes, I feel the frustration. I feel it's palpable for the energies in the masses are very frustrated at the moment with what they can't do and what they're being told they can't do. But the fact is, they can do whatever they want and just ignore them. This is the difference. It's, can you stand up and ignore the authority and just say no? Or do you need to fight it when it's pointless? So just say no and just do what you want to do, regardless of them. Well, if I do that, they're going to come and get me. No, they're not. They can't come and get masses. They can't come and get millions, you know, and there's millions out there. This is the thing. We don't see them because they're not shown, but they are. And what's really happening is, on an energetic level, is that the frustration and the want to change is altering the frequency and altering the energy of the collective completely to shift the collective to the next level. So everybody that stands up and does nothing and says, no more, I've had enough, no, is changing the collective for everybody to shift into that next level of everybody does that. So by doing nothing, you're doing everything. This is the weird thing. And feeling guilt is a sense of shame. It's a lower density. What are you guilty about? What, not complying with what? False authorities telling you false things to make you indoctrinated to do basically their work for them? No. Doing nothing, no thing, sorry, not nothing, doing no thing is perfect because it's saying no more. And your energies are then yours, not theirs. And you're not wasting it on them because you're ignoring them. You know, again, on the energetic level of that is, but just by lose the guilt, ignoring them, ignoring what they're saying, ignoring what they're doing, ignoring their authority, completely ignoring them. What have they got? Nothing. And that's when they go, gone. As humanity is moving towards that now, this is what's happening. And the energetics are changing things on that level too, collectively.
We've heard the expression that one of the things that the cabal is most afraid of is people not following their dictates, you know, that they're being ignored. And that's pretty much, I think, what you said there too. And I want to swing it over to Randall too, because Randall has, from my perception, a very interesting way of taking action. It's like he gets to the root of it, and yet he doesn't do it in a necessarily a blaming way, although, you know, don't get him started on the government mind stuff. But apart from that, it's sort of like what I get from Randall, and Randall, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to speak on this, of course, but what I get is that you're saying, okay, there's something here doesn't feel right, or there's something there, or something I want to know more about, or need to deal with, or get to the root of, and you just go and do it. You just go there and you say, okay, I want to talk to the prime minister, or I want to talk to such and such person, and you just take the action in that, and you have the courage and the ability and the confidence to do that, and that's what you do. That's my experience of you. Can you speak more to that and anything that we've talked about in the last few minutes between Lee and myself?
Yeah, like, first off, I want to say, I think I met Lee just previous to meeting you, William. Like, I think you guys both reached out about the same time, but, you know, Lee and I had some initial conversations wandering around in creeks and stuff like that we put online. And I don't know if any of those are still up because most of my channel is gone, but, you know, that old saying of when two meet, you know, like when you know your sovereignty, when you know your sovereign capabilities as a body, mind, and soul, the co-creation automatically begins. Okay, so when Lee says do nothing, he's already done. You know, like he's already done the work to put himself where he is now. You know, this is what it's about. Is co-creation or creation is always happening with us. We're always manifesting or creating our own reality no matter what. And then it happens. So by doing nothing now, we're surrendering to what we already thought in terms of sovereignty, Lee and I, and you as well, William. But, you know, like I recognize that in Lee, the very first conversation that we had, it was just like, fuck the government, you know, like I'm here, like this is me, you know, like what the fuck are you talking about, you know? And I've always thought the same way. Do I act in a little different manner than many? Yeah, you know, I'm a fucking alpha male. Like I'm just gonna walk into things, and I'm sorry if it bothers people, you know, like, because I'm not there out of force. I'm not there trying to run people's lives or tell them what to do or assume, or any of those fucking words that get thrown at me lately. Like, I mean, God, people, I've been blasted the last couple of days with some other people again, and one of them I just pushed delete. I said, see you later, I'm done with your judgment, and I just pushed delete. Like whatever, like you want to still fight, you want to still blame, and you want to still protest and stuff. That's up to you. I don't know that system, and I don't know that all of these things that are happening, so-called happening in the alternative media, are happening. I don't see them. So how the fuck am I supposed to judge that situation? So I just, like I said, the last couple of days has been a little bit challenging that way. So it's like, okay, just let it be, and again, let it be to myself, because I've already created this idea of heaven where I live. And I don't like to call it courageous or fearless, William. I know that it seems like that, but I just think of it as sovereign, acting in a position of equality, like Lee alluded to earlier, like President Duterte. Okay, I'll go meet him, like I'm gonna knock on his door, like Trudeau, he just ignores me. And most legal jurisdiction so-called authorities will ignore you, like they just won't give you any attention. So it just proves that idea of authority is in a legal jurisdiction manner is just utter fucking nonsense, So I don't know, I guess that's about where I'm at with that. And I just love you guys, because that co-creative aspect is what's been going on with us, the three of us, and our Tao Eternally group, which is going to meet later today. Just divine, authentic people with very unique experiences who have been growing together and listening to each other, whether it just be Facebook friends reading each other's, memes, or actually meeting on Tao Eternally the way we do, or, private conversations where we respect each other and stuff. It's just been wonderful. And I do the same with others. Like, bankers, fine, let's sit down and talk. But you're not going to get away with me without hearing me say, I love you. Like if we're not going to do this with love in our hearts and compassion for humanity, then move aside, like, because I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop with you. If you're going to try and drag me into some fear zone or some fucking hell zone, it's not going to work. Like I'm here for humanity. I love mankind. I love nature. I love animals. And that's what it's all about, is just keep going and spreading that love around, I don't know. How's that sound, William?
It sounds great. Says the man with the golden mustache. He's got a ray of light that goes right across his mustache the whole interview. So it's kind of cool. I like that.
I could move.
I feel like I want to give the floor to Lee for a minute. If there's anything in your wheelhouse that you wanted to share before we wrap up, Lee, or maybe you wanted to ask Randall something based on something that he said that maybe I haven't followed up on. If there's anything there for you, I just want to give you the floor for a minute and go for it.
No, I love you both. I love everybody. This is the funky part, that equality comes in. But I've got those videos, Rand. I've got those old ones. I've got them saved, brother.
Cool.
The initial Zoom ones from October, November, they're funky. Maybe one day we'll put them back up just for the fun of it. But the sovereign, awesome. Yeah, man. And they are, fuck the government, fuck all the authorities, blah, 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 because we'd already seen through it and we'd already stood like that. So there is, when you look at the complexity, when you look at the individuals, when you look at sovereignty, which is what this started off as, sovereignty is normal. We shouldn't treat it as abnormal. We shouldn't be looking at it as something we have to reach for. It's something that we are. So it's not something we have to learn, not something we have to be taught. That's the indoctrination to say, we haven't got it, you need to grasp it. No, it's something you already are. So it's more standing in that self-belief and that knowing that maybe there's a little bit of education involved or whatever, but that I'm not even worried about that, because that puts something into the future that's necessary. It's not. Everybody by definition is sovereign. Every human soul by definition is sovereign. End of. It's, so I would say to people, do whatever journey you need to. If you want to do the documentation paperwork, great. It was a necessity. It was useful for humanity for that process to be in place to show that there was a step through the legal structure out of it. But I will say that openly that I fully believe that the whole of the legal structure will collapse very, very shortly. Not working with the legal structure because it's not worth working with. It's just worth disposing of. The government structures will be destroyed. They'll be gone. The structures themselves may stay in place or parts of, but it's not worth working with malevolent structures in that aspect or malevolent individuals. So sovereignty is something much more that's going to be taken by individuals on the inside out, not given to them. Don't need to learn it. They just need to live it, stand in it, just be themselves without this pressure of I must be this, I must be that because they say so. No, you must be what this says. And if that's where we're going to be going. So everybody's going to be going back into that sort of mode of what feels right for me, what shouldn't do. And I'm not going to go into common law or the commandments, but it works on that basis. Do no harm. There's your simple law. There's your simple rule. Do no harm. That means firstly to yourself and to others. And just treat people the way you'd like to be treated. There is the simplicity. Now live it. There's sovereignty.
Yeah. Thank you, Lee. I was thinking, just one little phrase, follow your heart. And it kind of says it all, really. If you have a loving heart, you will treat others as you wish to be treated. And so it just feels like a sort of a de-shackling process that we're going through right now. And I'm very grateful for it, but I'm definitely having moments of challenge with it at the same time. Anyways, thank you, Lee. I want to pass it on to Randall for final comments as well as the final blessing. Randall, it's all yours, sir.
I think we should just skip my final blessing and say, do no harm. We love you.
We love you all.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child